Hey guys, Fallen Messiah here, and Cataclysm Druid is back. After a season of hiatus due to some severe nerfs, my favorite build in the entire game is back again. I worked really hard on making this build powerful once again, and I'm extremely proud of the end result. So I can't wait to share it with all of you. If you've seen my PTR version, well, let me just say that the live version is a lot better, far more optimized, and can even push into Pit 100. Yes, really. Where on the PTR I struggle with Pit 90 even with maxed out glyphs. There is a bit of history between me and this build, as it sort of helped to kickstart my channel. I will link my PTR video over here so you can check that out if you want to know a bit more history and lore between Cataclysm Druid and myself. Just go to the timestamp section that says history. Well, let's get back to the build. I had one guiding principle when making the Season 10 version of this build. It has to be fun to play. If you played Cataclysm in Season 9 or Season 8, then you know that it was a pretty bad experience all around. We had to juggle several different buffs. We had to make sure to cast Cataclysm during the Overpower buff, but if you failed, we did no damage. But before that buff, we had to cast Hurricane to proc a different buff. But you had to be careful not to cast Hurricane in the wrong time, or it would consume Provocation passive, our source of Overpower. So I said, fuck that. That was not fun to me, and I did not enjoy it. So I went back to the drawing board and I focused on things that actually make Cataclysm Druid great. And that is, well, pressing a button and walking around as monsters simply melt at your feet. The less complex, the better. So I threw Overpower and buff rotations right to the trash. That's right, this build plays with zero Overpower, and all the buffs we're using, we gain them organically through gameplay, as the idea is to make the build as cohesive as possible. A plug-and-play build that does not require complex and annoying Feast or Famine buff rotations, and I believe you will be surprised at what I came up with. Don't mistake simple for weak, however. This is the strongest version of Cataclysm Druid in a long time. No, it's not an S-tier build it used to be during Season 7 and before. In fact, it's not even the best Druid build this season. But the core of the build that we know and love is still here. It absolutely destroys Torment 4. It clears entire screens of hordes with ease, as you can see on your screen, and it's really just a fun build that's visually stunning, with huge AoE and just very enjoyable to play. And again, if you're willing to put in time and effort, you can take it to Pit 100+. You will see the Pit 95 run that I did while having glyphs at level only 45 and items in the wrong places. If all of that sounds fun to you, then sit back, relax as I take you through everything you need to know. Skills, items, Paragon, gameplay, and more. And of course, with a written planner down below. This time, however, along with my usual planner, I will be also having planners on Mobalytics and Maxroll, so I would very much appreciate your feedback. Let me know which ones you prefer in the future. And if you appreciate my efforts, drop a like to the video and a sub to the channel, as it really helps me out a ton. We just passed a 500 sub threshold, which I am super happy about, and there will be a separate video about that, including some of my future plans, a first stream, and more. I'm so happy you guys enjoy what I've been doing. It really means a lot to me, and I'm excited to continue the growth of this channel. Anyway, we have a lot of things to cover, so let's get straight to the build now. So, a quick overview of this build. What makes it different from its predecessors, and how are we able to scale off our damage this season compared to previous ones? So first of all, our major source of damage is going to be Ancestral Guidance. After spending 75 Spirit, which is going to happen organically, we deal 40x increased damage. But that's not too important. The second part is a lot more important for us. It says that our ultimate skill deal 1% multiplicative damage per spirit when cast. We're always going to be casting our Cataclysm at maximum spirit, and we also want to stack up spirit as high as it can be. So I'm going to be using consumable, Elixir of Resourcefulness. I pop this up, and now you can see I have over 300 spirit. This is 305% extra multiplicative damage. Not only that, but because we're also using Locrin's Talisman, every point of max resource also double dips. Not only do we get direct damage thanks to the Ancestral Guidance, but we also gain more crit strike damage because of the Locrin Talisman. So every point of max resource is extremely valuable, and it's the most important stat on this entire build. And by the way, in the Pit Clear 95 that I'm gonna show you, I used items like these with horrible masterworks, so please ignore that. I'm just working with what I have. We're also using Chaos perks, which multiply our damage tremendously thanks to two interactions. Number one, you will notice that we are playing on half-life because we're taking advantage of the Marred card, so this combination gives us 100% damage multi at all times. But also, this is something that I introduced in this version of the build. It's Overabundance. This makes sure that we have 300% extra multiplicative damage at all times. But I will cover this in the Chaos perk and gameplay version of the game. Because of all these multipliers and because of the Chaos armor that we have here, we're able to scale up our damage to great heights and allows the build to be so much more powerful than it was last season. But anyway, let's go to the skills first now. We're using Maul and Enhanced Maul. Maul is really great for Fortify, and we also use it once every couple of seconds in high pits to proc the 20% damage reduction given to us by Wild Transformation's Chaos perk. We also use it to proc Quick Shift, but in Torment 4, Maul is not really necessary, not really needed, but in higher, more challenging tiers of content, it is really nice to keep ourselves alive and to make sure that our Quick Shift is at max stacks. Then we're gonna go over here, we're gonna put 3 points into Heart of the Wild, because as I explained earlier, Maximum Spirit is a huge multiplier for us. 1 point into Shred, Enhanced Shred, and Primal to give the Shred a bit of a dash. Shred is a mobility skill. We're using a couple of tools, which I will talk about later, to generate tremendous amounts of resource and to make sure that we always have 300% extra multiplier thanks to the Abundance Chaos perk, and Shred is a key skill in making sure that we always do that. It also helps us to move around the map a little bit quicker and just makes the build even faster. On top of that, Shred is also a werewolf skill, so in combination with Maul, it helps to keep our quick shift stacks in higher levels of the pit. We're gonna put 1 point to Earth and Bulwark, Enhanced and Preserving. Bulwark is there mostly as our only source of Unstoppable and also gives us a nice little Fortify as well. This is kind of our panic, oh shit button. If something goes wrong, we are crowd controlled, we pop the Bulwark and then we are unstoppable. The problem is it has a pretty hefty cooldown, so unfortunately it's not always available to us, but it's there when we need it. 1 point Cyclone Armor, Enhanced and Preserving. Because this build is not using Irida's Will, we're also kind of relying on Cyclone Armor for the pool. This also isn't available all that much, but other than that, it's just a nice little passive increase to our non-physical damage reduction, so it's really nice to have even if you're not actually using it. 3 points into Backlash. This is a huge multiplier for us. This is a 60% damage multi for 5 seconds when we cast a defensive skill. Both of these are defensive skills. Not only that, we're gonna have Blood Howl pretty much on demand because it resets its cooldown every time we kill things. We're gonna be popping Blood Howl pretty frequently to benefit from Backlash. Ideally, we wanna make sure we use Blood Howl or any defensive skill just before we use Cataclysm for maximum damage. We're gonna put Enhanced and Innate. Innate not only generates Spirit and helps with the Abundance Chaos perk, but also grants us 25% increased damage, and because of the gameplay loop, we're always going to be in werewolf form before we cast Cataclysm. So this is just a straight up 25% damage multiplier for us. 2 points into Ancestral Fortitude for even more non-physical damage resistance. And we're also going to put 2 points into Vigilance for more damage reduction. 3 points Feral Aptitude for more damage. And 3 points Nature Reach for even more damage to distant enemies. And most of them are going to be distant. 3 points into Charge Atmosphere. Charge Atmosphere is a just straight up multiplier for our Cataclysm thanks to the Myonic Ring. 3 points into Electric Shock for more multiplicative damage. And 3 points to Endless Tempest to make sure that our Cataclysm lasts for as long as it can. We want to make sure we stack up on this passive, and I'm going to show you how in the item portion of the video. 1 point into Neurotoxin just so we can access the best passive in the entire game, in Venom. This basically almost doubles our crit strike damage. It's insane. So we're gonna put 3 points here, as we always do. 3 points into Defiance, 3 points into Natural Disaster, and 3 points into Resonance. These are all just very nice multipliers for us. Then we're gonna put 5 points into our main moneymaker, the Cataclysm, of course. 1 into Prime, and then 1 into Supreme. Cataclysm also makes our enemies vulnerable, so it sorts that out for us without us needing to do anything else, and it also is a source of crowd control. on level 5 because it slows down surrounding enemies. This is important for the change in depth aspect, which I'll talk about in the item portion. 3 points into Catastrophe. This is just a straight up damage multiplier for us as well. We're going to put 3 points into Quick Shift, one of the biggest sources of damage multiplication in any Druid build. Although Quick Shift is not nearly as important in this build as it is in others because max resource is basically our main damage scaler, but it's still important to have maximum Quick Shift stacks if you're doing pit tiers 90+. Other than that, it's not super important because if you did this build correctly, things in Torment 4 are just gonna die very quickly regardless. And 3 points into Heightened Senses. Werber grants more damage reduction and Werewolf grants more move speed, so this just makes us more tanky and a bit quicker. It's a really nice passive to have. 2 points into Defensive Posture and 1 point into Nature's Resolve just for even more fortify and damage reduction. And of course, we're gonna put a point into the Perfect Storm key passive. This is 80% damage multiplication for us, where we deal damage to vulnerable opponents, and they're always vulnerable thanks to the Cataclysm, so this just goes along nicely together. Now, one thing to note is that this is not the optimal setup that I'm running. This goddamn fucking item, the Mjolnir Ring, I was grinding hard to get the Chaos Unique version on this item, but I couldn't get it. Like, guys, this is not a joke. I've done hundreds and hundreds of hordes. Look at this. I have almost 900k Opticide. This has never happened to me before. I never maxed out on Opticide in any of the previous seasons. So this video would have been out ages ago, but things just wouldn't fucking drop for me at all. So I had to adapt and use what I have. I'm the kind of person that likes to get everything just right before I do it. So I was waiting for this Chaos Unique to drop, but it just never would. So I said, fuck it, I will adapt. The proper version is going to be on the planner. I was forced to make some changes. So when I go through every item, I will tell you what it actually should be as opposed to what I have. And by the way, while I am really loving this current season, I'm loving the Chaos Uniques. One big downside is that if you get a Chaos Unique in Helm or chest slots, it's pretty much completely useless because it directly competes with the best items in the game, which is Air of Perdition or Shaco or the Shroud. So you always want to make sure that your Chaos Uniques are either gloves, pants, or boots, which is a big downside in my opinion. And also, if you're unlucky as I was not to get the item that you need, it can be an extremely frustrating experience. Starting off with the Helm slot, the best slot item is actually Shaco with maximum resource greater apex. That way, when you max your work, max resource, the damage tends to be roughly the same. But you get an extra perk of more damage reduction and more cooldown reduction, which allows you to keep the gameplay more fluid and to replace this Runeword, which I'm forced to use to keep my Cataclysm off cooldown. So the best slot is Shaco with GA on max resource. Second best is Air of Perdition. Air of Perdition is also great because in combination with the Locran Talisman, it does cap out our crit strike chance without needing to do anything else, so that's really nice. And also, move speed is pretty fantastic, especially in Horde runs, in Nightmare dungeons. So if you have Air of Perdition, the build absolutely still works. I use it for my 95 clear, but Shaco is just a little bit better. On the chest, of course, we're going with the Shroud. It's just the best item in the game. And I even have a video going over this item in great detail, talking about why it's so good. So I'm sure you can find it on my channel if you so choose. You want to make sure you triple crit all stats if you can. But if something lands on max life, that's fine too. Because this is an extremely glassy build. We are basically a glass cannon build. We're always playing on half life. Every little bit of extra survivability and life goes a long way. But yeah, Shroud just gives us +1 to all passive. This is a huge damage multi in itself. Also, more damage reduction, more utility. This is just hard to replace and it's going to be the best slot item for us for sure. Here is where you would put the Mjolnir Ring, and ideally it would have GA to Endless Tempest, which then you would masterwork to make sure that your duration of Cataclysm is as long as it can be, because it's going to make your gameplay a lot more fun and fluid. You always want to make sure that your duration is longer than your cooldown, so you can immediately refresh it to make sure you keep doing damage, of course. So GA, Endless Tempest, and preferably you want to triple crit that with masterworking if you can. I actually have a better ring. This one is 38x, this one is 28x. But look at this. Allow me to introduce you to Masterworking Bottleneck number 3. Now that you have the gold, now that you have the Abdicite, it's time for Forgotten Souls to be the next cockblock. It's infuriating. Season 11 can't come quick enough. They've been teasing masterworking changes, so hopefully this shit gets resolved. But this is infuriating. Like, I don't have enough souls to get the tempers properly on this ring, so I'm forced to use the one that has less damage. But I digress. So what I went with is Willpower, Max Life, and Crit Strike damage gloves with the Runeworks Conduit, which is a straight up 50% damage multiplier for us thanks to the interaction with the Mjolnir ring, which provides our Cataclysm with Lightning Bolt benefits. Then we're going with Locran's Talisman. Locran's Talisman is amazing for a couple of reasons for us. First of all, it helps to cap out our Crit Strike chance. Even though you don't see it in the character sheet, we really do have 100% Crit Strike chance at all times, because we always have more than 100 spirit. So this is something that we benefit from. And also, every point of primary resource above 100 grants 0.2% critical strike damage. So on 500 resource, that's around 80% extra multiplier. And for us, I believe it's around 40% extra multi for extra ranks with Venom, if my math is correct, which isn't bad. This allows our max resource to double dip, not just on Ancestral Guidance, but also on Locran's Talisman. So the more max resource we have, the more powerful we get. Ideally, you want a GA max resource, and ideally, you want far better tempers than this one. Third one is gonna be Tempest Roar. Finally, thanks to the Chaos Uniques, we can put this item elsewhere. We no longer have to wear them on the helm, because this item was cock blocking us for many seasons, preventing us from using Shaco, preventing us from using air, but now, thankfully, in this season, we can put it somewhere else and be done with it. Tempest Roar is amazing, of course, because it gets our Storm skills a Werewolf tag, which allows several different multipliers. It allows multipliers on the Paragon board and other things, which I'll talk about a little bit later, so it's amazing. It also has a max resource stat as well. You want to make sure you have a GA here, preferably. You want to make sure you triple crit that if you can as well. As you can see, this is not an ideally masterworked item, but I'm just rolling with what I have, because if I waited for things to get perfect, this video wouldn't be out for another 2 weeks at the very least. Next, we're gonna have a two-handed legendary polearm. Any two-hander with 0.9 attacks per second is going to do, because that's the biggest base damage. However, polearm is preferable because of the vulnerable damage implicit. Stats should be willpower, max life, and crit strike damage. Tempers are chance for Cataclysm to deal double damage and lightning bolt damage. You want to make sure to get the chance for Cataclysm to deal double damage as high as it can. As you can see, I got it almost to 100%, which is pretty close. Sometimes, if you're really unlucky, you can get it not to proc the double damage roll, which is really unfortunate. For the aspect, we're going with the Changing Step. Changing Step says that we deal increased damage while hitting a crowd control enemy as a werewolf. Now, because our Cataclysm is slowing down enemies at all times, that's a form of crowd control, so we always benefit from this huge damage bonus. Now, for the amulet, we gotta go with Willpower, Max Resource, and Envenom. For the first time in probably ever, Willpower, Envenom, and Quick Shift isn't actually the best amulet for this build, because our max resource stat double dips both for Ancestral Guidance and Locran's Talisman. It's actually preferable for us than Quick Shift. But of course, if you already have amulet with Quick Shift and Envenom, first of all, you're very lucky, and second of all, use it. Of course, why wouldn't you? For Tempers, ideally, you want to triple crit Envenom, but one temper landing on willpower is acceptable. For tempers, we're going with Cataclysm cooldown reduction and lightning bolt damage. We're also rocking the Epigeic Furor aspect, which says that every time we cast Cataclysm, we deal more damage. So this is 15 damage up to 150, which is 10 casts. To be honest, I don't like this aspect very much, and I try to replace it, but nothing else is just good enough. There are a couple of problems with it. First of all, whenever you die, you lose stacks. Second of all, if you go somewhere and then you go to town and you go back, you lose stacks. So this is very unfortunate. I wish that they made it so you keep the stacks when you return or when you die. This also makes it that at the very beginning of fights, mostly on higher tiers of the pit, things get really slow until you get the ball rolling. So right around 5, 6 stacks of Epogeic and more is when things really get going and you start doing really tons of damage. Before that, things are really slow. This is why I'm not really a big fan of this aspect, but unfortunately we just don't have a replacement for it. It is what it is. Now again, on Torment 4, you're not really going to feel any kind of damage decrease too much, but for the pit, you definitely will feel the slower start for sure. For ring number 1, we're gonna go with Unsatiated. Stats are gonna be willpower, max life, and crit strike damage. Vulnerable damage is fine, but crit strike damage is better because it gets multiplied by several sources. It gets multiplied by Envenom, it gets multiplied by Locran's Talisman, it gets multiplied by the Spirited Glyph as well. So it's the better stat, but if you have something else, that's fine. Life is also very valuable to us because, again, we are playing only on 50% of life, so any life you can throw in this build goes a long way. For tempers, we're going with Cataclysm cooldown reduction and we're going with lightning bolt damage, and for masterworking you want to make sure to triple crit willpower if you can. If one crit lands on Cataclysm cooldown reduction, that's fine. For the aspect, we're going with the Unsatiated. After we critically strike an enemy with Shred, we gain 15 spirit. This is pretty important because, first of all, we gotta crit all the time. Second of all, this helps to keep our Abundance Chaos perk. And thirdly, it's also just a straight up to 40% damage multiplier because Tempest Roar makes our Cataclysm into a werewolf skill. So we always benefit from this multiplier, and it also gives us additional perks that really tie in really well with the build itself. Ring number 2 is going to be another legendary ring, and it's gonna be Balanced Aspect, which increases our maximum spirit by 50. As I explained earlier, every point of maximum spirit double dips in terms of damage, so this actually ends up working out better for us than the Runeworks Conduit, which I was kind of forced to use because I didn't get the items that I needed. We're also gonna go with willpower, max life, and crit strike damage the same, and tempers are also the same, Cataclysm cooldown reduction and lightning bolt damage. So basically you can just copy and paste ring number 1 in terms of stats. Willpower, max life, crit strike damage, tempers are the same, masterworking is the same as well. Now let's talk about chaos perks. I already mentioned most of them, but basically we're gonna rock a Beast Cornered. For every 10% life we're missing, we gain 20% increased damage. And in combination with Marred Guard, this means that we always have 100% damage multiplier for playing at half life. This also grants us more armor, more barrier, and more max resource, which is all nice and well. However, the fact does remain that we're only playing at 50% life, which does make this build kind of a glass cannon. And on Torment 4, it's not super important, but on higher levels of the pit, we definitely want to make sure we always have armor cap, we always have res cap, or as close to it as possible, and we also have as much damage reduction as we can with Fortify and other things, which I'll also talk about. The secondary effect of this also drains our life, but once we are in Cataclysm, we have unlimited resource, so this is never really too much concern for us. We also have Wild Transformations. This is an interesting perk. It basically rewards us for shapeshifting. Every time we shapeshift to Werewolf, we use a Blood Howl and also have 20% crit strike damage, which is basically like 2 extra ranks to Envenom. Werebear gives us Debilitating Roar and 20% damage reduction, and Human grants us 20% attack speed. The attack speed itself is not useful to us. However, damage reduction and crit strike damage definitely are. So on the gameplay portion, which I'll talk about soon, we want to make sure that we are shredding all over the place. But every couple of seconds, we also want to make sure that we use the maul. You saw the shout right there, just for more damage reduction. On higher levels of the pit, you're really gonna be grateful for it. Not only that, but this combination also makes sure that we have full stacks of quick shift. Finally, we also have Overabundance. Next to the maximum resource, this is the main moneymaker, the biggest damage scaler on this build. Every 100 spirit we generate above our maximum increases our damage by 100% for 5 seconds. This stacks up to 3 times. You might think this is hard, but it's actually really easy, and Shred is key to making sure we always have abundance. To fully leverage into Overabundance, we're using the combination of Money and Loom. Every time we cast 2 mobility skills, we restore 70 primary resource. So this is 2 casts of Shred. Not only that, but in combination with the Unsatiated, our Shred gains additional 15 spirit because it's always going to crit. So every 2 casts of Shred is 100 extra gain spirit. During gameplay, I found that all it takes is 4 casts of Shred to get 3 stacks of Overabundance, and then we're gonna cast Cataclysm for 300% extra multiplicative damage. Not bad, right? So, 1, 2, 3, and bam, 3 stacks of Overabundance right here, this little sword icon. So this is a huge source of damage multiplication for us. Second rune word is going to depend on your gear. If you have good Mjolnir Ring, if you have Masterwork stacks enough, and if you have Shaco for cooldown reduction, then you do not need what I'm rocking. I'm forced to rock this because I don't have Shaco with CDR. This basically says that every time I cast a non-basic skill, I get reduced cooldowns on my Cataclysm, Igni, Source Offering for later use, which makes it the best rune word for this effect. This ensures that I always can recast Cataclysm, which is obviously really important because you don't want to be caught without doing any kind of damage. However, if you have the optimized gear, which is again going to be in the planner, then you can do whatever you want here for the second one. Back plus Jaw is my personal recommendation because it basically grants you this short range teleport quite often and it just improves your mobility drastically. We can also use Vex for more plus the skills, which is going to further decrease cooldowns and increase damage of the Cataclysm. We also want to make sure to rock Willpower Gems on the rest of the armor slots, Skulls to make sure that we hit the armor cap, and also, very importantly, I'm using Fire Res Gem to make sure I have max Fire Res. Why Fire Res? Not all resistances are made equal. Most kinds of burst damage in the game is fire damage, and also most elemental sources of damage tends to be fire, especially in things like Hell Tide, for example. So capping out fire and poison should be your priority, and then other resistances next. So that's why I'm having this Fire Res here, and you can see that even without any elixirs, I already have fire, lightning, and poison capped. Other two resistances are not nearly as important. We also always want to make sure we are using Elixir of Resourcefulness because 25 max resource increases our damage significantly. Blessed Guide for willpower, Sun of the Mountain for more armor, and then Soothing Spices for more resistances. And then when I use everything, you can see I'm above the armor cap, and all my resistances are close to maximum as well. This is very important because, again, we're only playing with half-life, so being res and armor cap is going to help us tremendously in keeping us alive. Of course, if you really have a great Shaco, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have a lot easier job because it also gives you more damage resistance. I don't have it, so I definitely need to be on top of my game as far as defensive stats are concerned. Spirit boons are quite simple. We're gonna start off with Gift of the Stag. More maximum spirit means more damage. I already explained that. We're gonna go with more life because we are quite classy because we're playing only on 50% HP. And of course, Avian Wrath for more crit strike damage. Attack speed, not important for us. Crit strike chance, if you haven't maxed it out, if you have Shaco, this could be a good find. You can replace Iron Feather with side talents. And here we're gonna go with Calamity to extend the duration of our Cataclysm by a lot. And finally, Overload is gonna allow us to deal poison damage, which is super important for Envenom and Heightened Malice. Alright guys, let's talk about Paragon now. Again, as always, I'm not gonna go through every single node because that wouldn't make any sense. Full planner is always gonna be down below for your reference. You always wanna make sure that all of your glyphs have both of their bonuses unlocked, usually at level 45. And you want to make sure you always select all the legendary nodes. Everything else is secondary. So, we're starting off here with the first board, with the starter board, and the first glyph is Electrocution. This is the most important glyph because it increases our lightning bolt damage, which in turn converts to Cataclysm damage. Any extra points that you can spare should go here to making sure you always have all the willpower here selected in range, because every willpower increases our lightning bolt damage even further. For example, here, 45% extra lightning bolt damage on a single willpower node, and this can go even further because this glyph is only level 66. Now, even though this is additive damage, it really does add up over time because this is almost 1000% additive lightning bolt damage. It's also here on the starter board because starter board has the biggest amount of willpower nodes in range. Second board is going to be Thunderstruck. You want to make sure that this is always at 60%. Thankfully, this board procs itself. It takes our damage versus close and damage versus distant, but you basically just have this damage here. Damage to close enemies, for example. You don't need to have any additional bonuses on gear to make sure that you have this maxed out. And of course, this is going to be in the planner as well, so don't worry about it. Couple of things to point out. Second glyph is Earth and Sky. Earth and Sky grants bonus to magic nodes within range, so it grants bonus to these damage to close enemies. So, if you find yourself that you're not at 60%, then all you need to do is follow the planner and increase the levels to Earth and Sky glyph until it reaches 60%. Then, the third board is going to be Ancestral Guidance. This is by far the most important node in the entire build, as explained earlier. Not only does it give us 40% extra multi when spending Spirit, but also, more importantly, allows our maximum resource to really stack up our Cataclysm damage by providing 1% for every Spirit per cast. Because we're always casting Cataclysm at max damage, this amounts to over 300% multiplicative damage for our build, which then further gets increased by our Locran's Talisman. So this is very important. We're also going with Spirit. Spirit is a direct multiplier for crit strike damage. This is why I recommend always having crit strike damage as opposed to vulnerable damage on these item rolls, because it gets multiplied by several sources, and Spirit is one of them. If you already picked all the willpower nodes on the starter board, then the rest of your spare points should go here to select all these dexterity nodes in range for even more crit strike damage. Also, on the third board, don't sleep on the maximum spirit nodes, because as I explained several times now, they multiply our damage directly through Ancestral Guidance, and this is of course always going to be in the planner, but yeah, definitely you want to make sure to pick these maximum spirit nodes as well. Board number 4 is Lust for Carnage. Because Tempest War converts our Cataclysm into a werewolf skill, it's just a straight up 50% multiplier for us. Fourth glyph is going to be Keeper, which is another source of damage multiplication, and also we're gonna grab these maximum spirit nodes here, here, and here for even more damage. And the final board is gonna be Heightened Malice. Our spirit boon makes our lightning damage do poison damage, which procs Envenom and also procs this damage multiplier as well. And the fifth glyph is gonna be Headhunter for even more damage multiplication. If by any chance you have even more points to spare, they can go here to increase your willpower even further. Now, this fifth node has some very interesting sources of damage reduction for us if you can spare the points. For example, damage reduction from poisoned enemies here, 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 and here. All of this stacks out to 27 damage reduction from poisoned enemies, so definitely something to keep in mind. And on the second board, the Thunderstruck, we also have these nice little damage reduction from vulnerable enemies, which is also a really nice pickup as well. And now, guys, we came to the final section of this build, which is the gameplay. Gameplay is rather simple, especially on Torment 4. You really just press Cataclysm and things die, but there are a couple extra multipliers that we of course have access to. So the main gameplay is as follows. We have Shred. We want to make sure that we use Shred at every opportunity, because it makes sure that we always have Abundance active. Basically, 4 casts of Shred takes care of 3 stacks of Abundance, and then we want to make sure we cast Blood Howl or any of the other defensive skills to proc Backlash, and then we cast Cataclysm. Now, for higher tiers of the pit, before we actually enter any pit, we want to make sure we get 6 quick shift stacks. We do this by simply casting Maul and Shred a couple of times. So, like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and 6, and then Blood Howl and Cataclysm. And that's it. Shred took care of the overabundance. We had 6 stacks of Quick Shift, and we also gained Backlash because we cast Blood Howl right before Cataclysm. And that's really the gist of it. In the pit, as long as you keep using Shred to teleport around to keep the overabundance, you're always going to have 6 Quick Shift stacks, so you never have to do this really ever again. And also, every couple of seconds, you want to make sure that you hit with Maul just to gain the 20% damage reduction. But otherwise, in Torment 4, it's really not needed. On Torment 4, you literally can simply just press one of these 3, just Blood Howl and Cataclysm. And that's literally it. That's all you have to do for Torment 4, and the skill is just gonna take care of itself. And the gameplay, again, really simple. We just teleport around, we just whack things with Shred. Your every other cast of Cataclysm on Torment 4 is gonna benefit from overabundance. But if you really want to, on T4, you still can just cast Shred 4 times in the air. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hobble, Cataclysm. That's it. This took like, what, 3 seconds, and then you fully benefit from all of the buffs we have access to. So this is something that I really concern myself with, making sure that the build is extremely fluid and fun to play. We keep all of our buffs, all of the quick shifts, and all of the overabundance just by playing the game. Just by casting Shred all the time and Maul once every couple of seconds just for damage reduction and nothing else. We cast defensive skills whenever they're on cooldown. We cast Earthen Bulwark when we are crowd controlled, and we cast Cyclone Armor for extra pool when we need it to. That is really it, guys. It is really simple. For Pit, then just make sure that you follow the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 combo. This, bam, you're golden. That's all you have to do. And now I'm gonna show you my 95-bit clear and how the build plays in action. Alright guys, and just to show you quickly my 95-bit clear. Now again, please note that my glyph levels are trash, my items are not where they're supposed to be, so when I say that this is 100 plus build, I really do mean it. So I never over-embellish the threshold of what these builds can do, and I really stand behind every single estimate that I've made, so just something to keep in mind. But anyway, this is the start of the pit. I want you to pay attention to what I'm spending a couple of seconds of doing, just pre-buffing myself. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 combo, 6 quick shift stacks that happen very soon because I'm using Maul and Shred a couple of times. Shred also procs our overabundance for 300% extra damage. This is gonna be, did you see that? I used Blood Howl to proc Backflash, and then after that I used Cataclysm, and that's it. This took me like 5-6 seconds, and honestly, that's the gist of the gameplay. Now, the rest of the gameplay is just spent basically using Shred, teleporting around, and by using Shred, I'm doing a couple of things. I'm making sure my overabundance is always at 3 stacks. I'm also reducing my cooldowns because unfortunately I don't have Shaco, so this is what I have to do. I'm also proccing my Sexual Guidance, and I'm keeping my quick shift stacks at 6. So I'm doing all of these things just by attacking with Shred and with Maul once every couple of seconds to get that 5-second 20% damage resistance buff. But anyway, that's the gameplay. And as you can see, I have 3 stacks of Apogeic Fear at the moment. I said that in the beginning, gameplay feels very slow. That's because the stacks haven't ramped up yet in damage. This is unfortunately the main side effect of Apogeic Furor, but we just don't have anything else to replace it with. Nothing nearly as good. Hopefully one day, but right now we're forced to rely on it, which means that every start of every pit is just slow. It takes the damage a little bit to ramp up. But as you can see, gameplay is remarkably simple. I'm literally just pressing defensive skills off cooldown. I am using Shred 99% of the time. I'm using Maul for the damage reduction buff, and I'm casting Cataclysm whenever it's available to ramp up the Apogeic Fear stacks. That's it. I wish I could tell you that gameplay is more involved than it is, but it isn't. I took great pains and great efforts to make it as easy as possible to play. Just plug and play, literally. No complicated buff rotations. We're literally getting all of our buffs organically, naturally through gameplay. And that's it. That's all there is to it. And also, because the AoE of Cataclysm is so huge, one other tip is if you have an elite that's like at 20%, and you killed all of their ads, let the elite follow you. Lead the elite to the next pack to save yourself sometime. That's something that I also do sometimes. This is the probably biggest drawback of Cataclysm, the inability to target monsters directly. You ideally want to kill all of these annoying elites that have these shackles or suppressor or damage reduction auras, but unfortunately, we can't really target them. We can get as close to them as possible and hope that Cataclysm is gonna do the rest of the work for us. And here, just so you can see the Pit 95 clear. The boss is dead. Unfortunately, this is not the best boss killer in the game. It is what it is. Every build has its drawbacks, and this is not the best boss killer. But again, on Torment 4, bosses die almost instantly, so that's not a problem. I'm going over glyphs here just to show you that the clear has been done with glyphs as low as 45, with sub-ideal items, with pretty bad tempers. So this is definitely can get optimized a lot better. And there you have it. That has been everything there is to know about Cataclysm Druid build for Season 10. With all the new multipliers available to us, thanks to the Chaos Armor and perks, we've been able to play without any annoying buffs or overpowers. Just pure plug-and-play fantasy, one button and everything dies. The way it's meant to be played. Of course, on higher pit levels, things take longer to die, but we are still keeping the organic playstyle, keeping all of our buffs, just with our Maul Shred combo. And the end result is a super fun build with a huge, stunning AoE that clears the entire screen and it's extremely satisfying to play. And now, it's your turn. Tell me, how did you like the build? Will you give it a try this season? And if you already have been playing it, what do you think of my version? Your feedback is important to me, so if you have any comments or questions, let me know down in the comments, and I will do my best to reply as soon as possible. Once again, planner will be in the description and in the pinned comment, but this time you can find Maxroll and Mobalytics planners as well. So please let me know which ones you prefer for future builds. Speaking of which, there are more builds coming soon, so stay tuned for that. And one other little note, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you. Your support and viewership is invaluable and motivates me to continue to keep making these videos. I have just been accepted for the limited YouTube partner program, which means that starting from now, you can use Super Chat and Super Stickers on my channel if you want. I also have a Buy Me a Coffee page too. I never advertised it before, but if you ever wondered how you can buy me a cup of coffee or a beer, the link will be down in the description as well. Other than that, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. It's free and it helps me out tremendously. We just hit the 500 sub threshold, and if we can get to 800 until the end of the year, that would be just fantastic. Well, anyway, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Fallen Messiah, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.